Dennis Rodman back on the show. Dennis, good look, good glasses.
You just said it just a few minutes ago. You said it was ugly as hell.
They are. Those are some of the worst glasses I've ever seen in my life.
I think a lot of this started with Jim Rome. His theme was, when he started out many years ago, it was have a take, don't suck.
Former Rams and current Saints quarterback Jim Everett was the guest of Talk 2 host Jim Rome. Everett physically assaulted Rome after taking exception to Rome continuously addressing him as Chris Evert.
Yesterday at Amelia Island, Florida, Chris Evert Lloyd did what comes naturally to her, that is win another tennis tournament.
Jim, good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Jim. Thank you.
Check that. Chris Evert, good to have you on the show.
You know what? You've been calling me that for about the last 5 years.
About 2 years, actually, Chris.
Well, hey, you know, we're sitting here right now, and if you guys want to take a station break, you can. But if you call me Chris Evert to my face one more time...
I already did it twice.
You call it one more time, we better take a station break. I think that you probably won't say it again.
I bet I do.
Okay.
Chris?
Wow. So I remember that. That's a famous deal. Everett was the quarterback of the Rams. Rome thought he was a little soft. But, you know, you don't invite a guy on TV like that, trying to get attention and trying to get him to react.
I mean, you may have even been Jim Everett back there, but somewhere along the way, Jim, you ceased being Jim and you became Chris.
But that was staged. Not from an Everett perspective, but Rome brought him on there so Everett would get annoyed and do exactly what Everett did.
Back then, Jim Rome was kind of out of the box for doing stuff like this, for kind of poking the bear. To me, I feel like there's a way to critique without being disrespectful. But I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often today because mainstream media loves to disrespect.
I'm gonna stand by the smack. I've called him Chris on the show before he got here, and I'm going to call him Chris to his face.
You know, that was a while ago, but I think if it were to happen today, it still would have been a bit shocking. As much as things have changed since that time, that was pretty intense.
It's too bad. We had a very nice interview that we wanted to do, but I'm gonna stand by the smack, and for whatever reason, he didn't want to hear it.
I didn't know who Jim Rome was until that happened. Maybe that played into it. I think Jim Rome would have to answer that.
This is what made Jim Rome huge. It's like, would you say it to their face? It's one thing to be in a television studio on satellite. Jim Rome said it to his face. He's like, listen, this is how I feel about you. And obviously, you know, Everett got mad, but who wouldn't?
You know, the thing about it, Rome wasn't even thinking that Chris Evert is a great athlete and he shouldn't have used that. He just called Jim Chris to say he was a girl, to challenge his manhood, to call this guy a punk on national TV. That's why Everett snapped. You know, in the end, both Everett and Romy came off looking bad, and the entire incident did nothing to improve the athlete's perception that they can't trust some journalists, and it did nothing to improve the journalist's perception that some athletes are too sensitive.
Any athlete that says they don't see it or hear it is lying. You see and hear everything, particularly today, because there's just so many different outlets and people having a voice. But it's less about being right, it's more about being first, and it's less about critiquing the performance and more about disrespecting the individual. And I think that's where people get in trouble.